Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Transfer Portal Podcast presented by NoContextCFB. And today, there's still not that much news going on in college football. Jordan Addison has not gone to Texas or USC yet. So let's talk about something that is kind of interesting. Who doesn't do well enough? Obviously, every program has their niche. Texas and Nebraska, for example, they're very historic, but right now they're not at the top where they should be. Also, I probably should have introduced ourselves. My name's Andrew Wilson. Alongside me, Andrew Doug. How are we doing?
You doing all right, brother? You doing
all
all
right, Doug, you can't do that to me, man. I was waiting for you to go, and then as soon as I go, then you go. You
I'm sorry. You go first.
I'm sorry. I'm all right. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. When we were talking last night and we were trying to come up for topics for this pod, I mean, the fact that we're even talking about this is truthfully by accident. The only reason why I feel like we're talking about this is because I brought up about how Brock Osweiler was talking about how Arizona State's just not good enough in terms of everything, in terms of recruiting, in terms of winning, in terms of attendance. He believes that there's no reason why Arizona State isn't good enough. And it kind of just brought up the idea of, okay, so who are some programs that are not, up to where they could be, in terms of like maybe College Town, in terms of resources in the city, that sort of thing. But me and Liam, we got into a shouting match last night because he kept on saying Texas. And I'm like, I can't compare Texas to Arizona State because we already know Texas is not good enough. Okay. But at the end of the day, they still get the top 10 recruiting classes. Like, what can't you sell me on Austin? Like, what can you sell me on Austin that you can't sell me on in terms of Tempe, Phoenix, Scottsdale? That's kind of been the inspiration of this thing.
Doug?
That was a really long intro. I'm doing well, by the way, everybody. I know it's been a long time that I've seen your faces outside of either Bortle or these one-off tier makers that I do or drafts. Anyways, it's good to be back. And I do agree with your point, Andrew. Like, certain programs can't be compared if we're talking about this topic because you're battling whether a program has all the resources and just flat out underachieves versus a program that should have a better infrastructure and just refuses to do something about it. Like Arizona State falls in the latter where they should be a powerhouse program. Not necessarily a powerhouse, but they should be consistent. Like, I liken them to –
They should be Pac-12 contenders, minimum.
I liken them to Penn State, in a sense, is where they should be. Not necessarily competing for the Pac-12 every year, but they should be making the occasional New Year's Six, competing for that high-end non-New Year's Six bowl games, occasional conference titles. But, like, they should be better than that. And what are they? They are a team that has half their coaching staff fucking under, I guess, I'm sorry, half the team that's under
don't worry about it, we're putting this on explicit anyways.
Beautiful. Half their coaching staff under investigation / suspended, and that's just not good. Like, you've had this looming over your head. You've had a mass amount of transfers. Like, Herm was brought in to professionalize this program that kind of stagnated under Todd Graham, and he hasn't done that. They've actually tried it backwards. Like, the concerns that everybody had about Herm Edwards reared its ugly head, which is also funny because people had the opposite concerns about Kevin Sumlin, and he's arguably the worst coach in Pac-12 history. So, yeah, I do agree with what you were saying, Andrew, overall, in terms of can't really compare likes of Arizona State to Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I know Andrew was talking about what can you compare in Austin and Scottsdale. The first thing that came to my mind was sales tax, but I don't think high schoolers really care about sales tax to much of an extent. But yeah,
what's the sales tax? What's the sales tax in Arizona? It's 8.25 here in Texas.
– Or there's some sort of tax that is like
state income tax.
Yeah, state income tax. That's what I'm talking about, not sales tax. I'm 19.
Fair,
I don't know much about taxes. This high school sucks.
Texas actually does have among the highest sales taxes in the country.
And there's no income tax.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, government's going to get their money back somehow, but we're not here for politics or economics. I mean, we're here to talk about football programs.
Yeah, exactly.
5.6 in Arizona. So it's actually lower in Arizona. But once again, who the heck cares about sales tax when you're a 17-year-old football player?
Yeah, you're saving
$18-year-old.
$3. You're saving like just a little less than $3 for every $100 you spend. I mean, that's kind of freaking it.
Yeah. But it does also put the question, because Arizona, depending on what city, you're going to get a ton of NIL offers. And we could even be talking about pre-NIL. Did you want to stick to that? Or are we just going to talk about the current landscape?
Here's the thing.
NIL.
I think because we're kind of like still in the early stages of the NIL era, I think we kind of got to take both into consideration. I think Austin now is I think it is much easier to commit to Texas now than what it was 5 years ago, in my honest opinion, even like when Tom Herman was there, because now the athletes are allowed to make their own money. I mean, Austin is a city now. Like, first it was a city built around a university. Now it's a city that has a big university in the city. There's a difference. Google is now in Austin. Tesla is in Austin. We saw Bijan Robinson get his NIL deal with Lamborghini. We got so many massive, we're getting so many massive companies moving to Austin that it's easy now for Texas to get these big name recruits. I think it's easier. I think Texas is in the best situation right now because Austin is a legit college town. It's a legit party town. It's, I ain't trying to sound sexist, but guess what? There are girls there. There are some hot girls over there. There's business opportunities almost everywhere you look. Austin is essentially the city to be in, especially if you're a guy in your late teens or early 20s. There's almost legitimately no other city I think you'd rather be in than Austin. But in terms of then it kind of goes back to the whole like Tempe, Scottsdale. Like, Phoenix is a solidified city. It's the fifth largest city in America, if I have that correctly. It's like top 6 at worst. But Arizona State, they don't do anything about it. Like, I will say this about Arizona. The heat sucks. I mean,
oh my gosh.
Every time I turn on the news and I see 110 degrees in Phoenix or Tucson, I'm just like, nope, can't do it.
It's dry, so it's not as bad as you think.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, I saw something, we saw about how Fox is getting the rights to Texas, Alabama for the week 2 game. But that's going to be in Austin. And if it's going to be in Austin and if Fox has it, I will curse at Fox if they make this a big noon kickoff game. Like, if
it is a big noon kickoff.
Well, then, you know what? I will contact my grandfather in Mexico and I will have him discover some Aztec curse, because this is unacceptable. Because have you guys been in Texas like early September? Middle day, like 1 p.m. Like, it's going to be like 1 p.m. around halftime of that game. People are going to be
during
dying.
the summer outside at like 1. So wasn't a fan.
No, it's horrible. It sucks. Like, even when I was playing football in high school, I absolutely dreaded 2-a-days because we were in full pads around that 1 to 2 o'clock period. Absolutely freaking nuts. And just look, I actually like the night times here during the summer. I actually do. It's still humid, but at least the weather's not too bad. The temperature's not too bad. But fucking hell, like, Fox, go jump off a cliff or do something, man. Like run your production trucks all the way deep into the hill country, because making that a big noon kickoff in September, Texas heat, absolutely freaking not.
Also, can I just say, Alabama and Texas, to be honest, should never be, with the exception of the Red River rivalry, it should never, Red River shootout. It's what
they both work. They both work out.
It should be the shootout, though. We should never have to hear Red River rivalry, even though it honestly kind of sounds better. But Texas shouldn't be an 11 o'clock kick for me, Central Time Zone. Alabama should never be an 11 o'clock kick. I don't care if they're playing New Mexico State. Alabama.
No, you got to burn those games out. You're not playing them at 3:30. Some team has to take that 12 o'clock spot.
Only time I would consider that acceptable is like their week 13, week 12, like FCS Yeah, exactly. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, that is so late in the season, and at that point, we kind of already know what's going to happen in the SEC. That we don't care. Like even if it's a 7 or 6:30 p.m. game, we don't care.
Yeah. I guess you can save the hype for the following week, which would be rivalry week. But Texas Alabama is one of the most hyped up matchups going into the season. Why the heck is it going to be in the morning? I mean, people in the Pacific time zone have to wake up at 8:30, 9 o'clock to watch one of the best college football games this year. That shit.
And now you know why Texas
Fox
and Oklahoma left for the SEC.
Well, I mean, like, here's the thing. I mean, big thing with Fox, I mean, it's been a huge topic. I mean, Fox took Penn State, Wisconsin, week 1 last season. It was one of the only matchups between two ranked teams. I think there was like one of like 2 or 3 that actually had ranked matchups, and they put it at 11. They put Wisconsin Notre Dame at 11. They put Wisconsin Michigan. I don't know what the hell Fox's fetish was with Wisconsin, even though we were terrible in the beginning of the season last season. But, you know, Fox, I mean, they put Nebraska, Oklahoma as a big noon kickoff. And that one I was a little indifferent. I was like, yeah, it probably should be an 11 o'clock game, but why the hell are we hyping it up for it to be on Fox? I just, you know, and I actually read something online today that this has potential to be the hottest game ever in Austin ever recorded. The hottest ever was against Rice in 2011, and that was at 100 degrees.
So as a person that actually took a weather studies course, anything after day 4 is bunk when it comes to future forecasting. So you're good for 3 days, 3 to 4 days. Anything after that, just wait till stuff comes. The only time that's really not as bunk is like hurricanes season, but that's mainly because you can see it from far out. But like I said, paths change. But yeah, it may be 110 and maybe 90 or something. But yeah, it's way too soon to be judging that. But yeah, no, like I don't fault Fox for putting the games at noon because big noon's actually like been like a boom for them, like ratings wise. I just wish that they'd probably put more teams not in the South. Like I've learned, like Big Noon, I think you should reserve for Big 10 games mainly because you put Big 12
like
games.
If it was like the Auburn Penn State game last season that was in Happy Valley, that I think actually works.
It's like for safety. Like that's another thing. You're talking about like the weather. But, like, you know how it is usually. But in general, like, I'm not trying to see kids out there 12 o'clock. One team's definitely wearing dark colors. Like, it's recipe for disaster. But, yeah, no, like, I don't mind big noon as much. You think about it, right? 3:30 SEC territory. Saturday night game flips all over. It's national. It's not really tied to – it's ESPN territory. So Fox, the only time slot they have is noon, and they made it their own. So I don't really blame them for having a big noon. It's just like the game choices outside of the game have been pretty bad for noon. So, oh yeah, Red River, because that's always been a new game too. So,
yeah. I feel like we've gotten completely cut off topic. 1 second we're talking about programs that would be better. Next thing we're talking about Texas weather. I mean, I feel like I'm the expert here among all 3 of us, but I am kind of already sick and tired of it because it's been hot as hell here the last couple of days.
Damn.
Yeah. What I will say before we try and get back on topic, 2 things. The only reason we watch Fox is because we love college football and because of Gus Johnson. Am I wrong in saying that?
I mean,
yeah, because I personally am blocked by one of the announcers. I'm not trying to say their name in case they try to come on this pod. But yeah, Gus is the guy. It's not Gus I'm blocked by, so we're good. But one of the
is Gus on Twitter?
I don't know.
I feel like it's JK.
No, it's not JK.
Is it a Fox announcer though?
It is a Fox announcer. He's a national guy. But yeah, no, he blocked me because I was getting on his tweets about him making up sources and whatnot. But that's beside the point.
That's a lot of people.
Off camera, then.
Yeah, talk about off camera.
Yeah. But let's go back to talking about programs.
All right,
since that's kind of what we're here to do. Do any of you have one that you like really want to start with, or should we go off of my little list I have right here?
I mean, I kind of already said Arizona State. I mean, I feel like I've already dove in about as well as I could on that. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to say Texas A&M, but my thing with Texas A&M, and I'm not saying this because we got a person from Texas A&M, but it's like, I don't know what you want Texas A&M to be. I mean, I literally wrote a paper on this like a couple weeks ago saying how Texas A&M has the third best record in the SEC since 2018, since Jimbo joined the Aggies. They have a better record than LSU in that same span, and that's including LSU's 15-0 perfect season. And the only two teams that have finished better than them in the ACC is Texas A&M and Alabama. And guess what? Those are the two teams that beats them in recruiting rankings every single season. So how much better do you truthfully want them to do? Mizzou is a program that I kind of feel like you could be better. Like they used to be better, like just over 10 years ago. Florida can almost get to that extent, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the Napier hire. I'm not, truthfully, I just don't know why they're just not better. Andrew, I mean, Doug, what you got?
Okay, so let me start off. So Florida's for the most part, they've been pretty successful. Like usually their new coach starts off pretty hot and then just teeters off. The infrastructure is there. It's just the new coaches maintaining that momentum, which McElwain hadn't, Muschamp hadn't. Mullen just completely cratered after a pretty good season last year. I mean, the year prior before this past year. So Florida, I'm not really worried about as much. They'll be fine. They'll bounce back. I look at more so at the other two big Florida schools. I'm talking about Miami and Florida State. Miami, you see that they're constantly, now that the admin is finally bought in, they should be able to bounce back, in terms of having boosters, work with the program versus boosters versus admin infighting, which kind of results in the strained processes and whatnot. So Miami should bounce back. But they won't be the powerhouse that they used to be. That was few.
Here's a serious question on Miami.
Go ahead.
Does it feel like it's somewhat towards them that they do not have their own stadium?
Yes and no. Pitt won the ACC and they don't have their own stadium, but at the same time, Pitt actually has a synergy with the Steelers. They share the same practice facilities. They use the same medical resources. So Pitt has a synergy with the Steelers. So it's not really necessarily a bad thing for them. Also, I don't think Pitt's also within the city versus Miami's pretty much it's a sprawl. Exactly. Coral Gables.
It's also what is it, 30 minutes from the actual university to Hard Rock?
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty far compared to the Orange Bowl, which was within walking distance. Also, Miami, people don't realize it's a private school. So they don't have that same alum base, but they have a lot of money that is actually coming towards them now. And once the admin finally bought into making football great again versus actively fighting it like it did for the past 4 decades or so, they'll be fine. Miami will be fine. Florida State, they're fundraising for new facilities, but I'm not sure whether Mike Norvell's that guy. I'm just not sure whether they can be.
It would cost Florida State about $15 million to buy him out right now.
I don't think they're going to buy him out. So the signs of progress are there. I just don't think it's enough to make him be that de facto coach. I think that they're going to wait till the buyout's low, and I think he's gone. But he's going to leave a lot cleaner foundation that Willie did than Jimbo did, because Jimbo cratered. Willie was just a mess. But Mike's going to be the cleanup guy for the next coach that comes in, and that's totally fine. But I don't expect much from Florida State anytime soon. That's going to be my program that I really talk about. Oh, yeah, and then finally, sorry for hogging up time, A&M. A&M, it's weird because they want to beat Texas, and Texas also has this fetish for thinking that they're a bigger program than they are, because Texas, for the most part, is not really a natty contender program. And it's keeping up with the Joneses when the Joneses actually don't have shit, which is funny. So A&M right now is actually on a Texas trajectory in a good way. like Mac Brown era, not necessarily win the Natty, but be in that New Year Six hunt, which for Jimbo, while Jimbo's contract, it's probably not worth it. It's still pretty good return on investment. But then again, like think about it. What top coach that's truly worth a contract right now? You have Kirby, you have Saban, you have Dabo, and that's it. Because like I would have said Brian Kelly if he stayed at Notre Dame because he's made multiple playoffs.
I wouldn't pay Brian.
I mean, but Notre Dame has like way more like restrictions, and he's taken them to playoffs, so I can't really like fault on it. But
here's my thing with A&M. I mean, are you saying that? Because I'm a little confused with what you're saying with the A&M. You know, it kind of like feels like what I just said about 2 minutes ago, what you said right now is like somewhat contracting in terms of, you know, I think we can both agree that like A&M is. I trust A&M's project right now much more than I trust Texas's project.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of that goes into the fact that they finally beat out Alabama, they finally beat out Georgia in the recruiting rankings. Mm-hmm. You know, now it's just a matter of like, okay, how does that look in 2 to 3 years? This is not the season that I expect A&M to take that step front.
Agreed.
In fact, I think this is going to be another season where A&M goes 8-4, maybe 7-5 because they lost a ton of defensive talent. And Jimbo's going to get absolutely clowned by the media. It's like we kind of already know how this is going to work out. But here's the thing: Jimbo could go 5-7, he can go 4-8, and he's still going to be super safe. Like that dude, he's got among the safest jobs in the country. You know, yes. behind those three guys that you said. But the thing with A&M is like it's like, you know, I'm trying to like go a little bit with the keeping up with the Joneses type of thing. Like both those programs, they're in terms of just recruiting and bringing in talent and in terms of facilities, because they both got beautiful facilities. In fact, A&M, they're going to construct new facilities. It's really bringing in the topic of like, how do I say, like, you know, they're both doing everything that they can. And Tech, they got a top 5 class 2023. For now, we have yet to see Zach Kidley. He's going to be an amazing offensive coordinator over there. But I think right now the only way that Texas A&M could be better in terms of bringing in recruits is you literally steal away from the other team.
Yeah, no, like my whole point wasn't necessarily focusing on recruiting. I was saying that at least the fan base, what Texas A&M wants, like in terms of like results wise, is probably what Texas had during Mac Brown's peak.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, like continuous New Year's Six / playoff burst, occasional national title appearance.
And honestly, that should be like maximum, I guess, that they should be happy with. I mean, because
that is the maximum they should be happy with.
I'm not expecting them to be playoff contenders. I'm not expecting them to be, but like if they put out an Orange Bowl, remember they were in 2020, they were only 1 seed away from reaching the playoff and probably getting stopped by Alabama again, but they still made it to the Orange Bowl. They still beat UNC. If they went to the Orange, like if they took a New Year's Six Bowl every season for like the next 5 years, they should absolutely take that and run away, because I guarantee you it's been much better than what someone had toward the end of his tenure over there. And it would easily be almost anything better, really, that they've had since they were like Cotton Bowl contenders back during the 30s.
That's exactly it. So, yeah, no, like that's exactly it. If they shift their expectations a little bit, then it's perfect. But I feel like A&M has a little bit more realism about who they are in the game than Texas has. So I think they're fine in terms of like underachieving versus Texas, where they'll just throw in a sinkhole of money and not realize that they themselves are the problem and that money can't necessarily fix everything, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Especially with Texas, you talked about A&M fans, normal, but Texas fans, we kind of clown them every year for the whole Texas is back thing. Oh, Sam Ehlinger, he's that Adam. Guy. Shout out Adam. We love Texas on this podcast, but we also need to be real for a few minutes. But it always seems like they try and turn nothing into everything. Quinn Ewers, very talented guy, but he's never thrown a pass in college football. He looked good in spring ball, but we haven't seen anything on a field of play that actually matters. It matters to your record. So is Texas back? Possibly, but it's not a for sure thing. We can't say that every year expecting it, because then you're setting yourself up for disappointment, which Texas fans are used to at this point. Sorry, but I'm right.
They remind me of another team that's in orange, but their fan base, like, it's also lower standards, but also gets disappointed. Talking about Tennessee, I was going to talk about Tennessee, but Syracuse, they don't expect much nowadays, man. They just want
that trolling. I just want to make fun of Otto. I just want to make fun of Otto the Orange, to be honest.
That dumb mascot.
Otto's a gentleman.
He's a gentle orange.
Yes.
Gentle fruit.
I feel like with Tennessee now, I think a lot of fan bases, like, I think a lot of Tennessee's fans, I just feel like once they realize they're like, oh, I feel like it's just a matter of like, Tennessee can start off hot. They could have like a good start to the season. They're up like this. And then once they realize that they suck, it's like, oh yeah, we suck again. I just feel like that's the attitude.
Yeah, no, they have a realization, but like, I like the trajectory that the Volunteers are going in under Heupel. I think that because I do think Florida's going to take a step back for a few years. It'll be them and Kentucky battling for second, because let's be honest, nobody's catching my dogs. But sorry, shout out national champions. Beside the point. So Tennessee, like, if things breaking well, let me actually see their schedule. Sorry, guys, I don't really do research while I'm here. I just talk because I know.
I was looking at a few days ago. It looks.
There's a belief that Tennessee could go undefeated going into the third Saturday of October, which
I think it's likely.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
likely.
So like their schedule sets up well. The issue is that they have a guaranteed loss to 2 loss. Oh, never mind. They face Pitt at Pitt. And LSU this year. Okay, at LSU. This is not okay. This is not great.
To be fair, I mean, I don't think we should put all of our eggs in the basket in terms of like an LSU home game, because that's not really. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how Pitt's going to be. I mean, there's no Addison. Obviously, Pickett's in the NFL now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whipple went to Nebraska, so
I don't know what we're going to expect from Pitt going into the season. I mean, I wouldn't put them at a top 25 in terms of right now. Maybe 25th spot.
I mean, I like their schedule the following year like a lot better, because 2023, their main non-conference, like out of conference game is Virginia. And then their cross rival is A&M that they have at home. And with the way Tennessee's recruiting and they developed a lot of talent year one, I think that they could do that, because like a lot of their games are at home, not on the road. Like if they weren't on the road, then I value a lot of home field advantage.
Okay, I'm going to say this. Okay, ceiling for Tennessee going into this season, their ceiling, I think, is 10-2. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that their floor is 6-6.
I'd err on the caution of 7-5, but
yeah, I honestly think that they'll win 8 games this year, not including bowl game.
I'll say 9. I'll say they go 9-3. I think they'll beat LSU, but I think they're going to lose to Bama, Georgia, and Kentucky.
Okay.
Fair. I'm also just not 100% on the whole Will Levis hype train.
I agree with you, Wilson. I'm not really on that hype train.
I mean, it's just a matter of like, hey, he was good last season, but that's like when we start seeing like number 1 overall pick for 2023, I'm like, oh my goodness, where the hell did this come from?
You gotta stick with the classics, man. You gotta stick with Bryce and CJ, and don't really overthink those two.
CJ over Bryce.
I don't have an order for those two. I just want them to be Eagles at this point. Don't overthink those two. Anything after that, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Come on, Andrew. You got to give us a team.
Sorry, you guys have been talking a lot. Kidding. But
we're about to cut you off again.
Cut me off. I dare you. Kick me from this call. But I do want to talk about Nebraska, just because such a story. Sorry, but also not sorry, because I hate Nebraska. Nebraska, big money. Historic program, probably the most loyal fan base, easily the best traveling fan base in all of the
nicest people too.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I talked to some, and my gosh, they were nothing but cordial. You think there's Minnesota nice? There's also Nebraska Cornhusker traveling fan nice. So that was a little breath of air that was refreshing after having Ohio State fans yelling at me. Corn air. I'm going to use that. But Nebraska has the big money, the fan base, the program. they're not really the top of the recruiting. Obviously, they're not going to beat out any of the teams in the Big Ten East because they're in the Big Ten West, and Big Ten West is not great. But I feel like they just should always be better than what they are, especially with Scott Frost. Scott Frost was brought in as not going to say he won a national championship, but people talk about how they were undefeated. But since he's been there, he's done nothing to that team. He's made it worse. They haven't been to a single bowl game. They're coming off a 3-9 season. And I don't care how many times they lose by one possession. Losing by one possession is the same as losing by 60 because you still lost.
Like, Nebraska had so many things going for them in the 70s onward that just doesn't work in today's game, and they can't get that to work for them in 2022. Like, partial qualifiers aren't a thing anymore. That also kind of hurt Kansas State, but Kansas State also relied a lot on JUCOs, and you saw them fall off after a while. Like, you see these programs like Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas State, where they kind of recruit like differently than others, mainly because they're at least geographically limited outside of Colorado. Their fall off is just a lot more Bill McCartney leaving than anything. But but like the option, done and dusted. The steroids, everybody caught up because they were roid users. Let's be honest, man. If you come into college like 6'8", 240, you on the gas. But like, I don't think that they're underachieving in terms of what they are now.
In terms of what they bring in.
I mean, what they bring, like in terms of like what they spend, yes, they do. But like in terms of like,
I'm talking recruiting and more likely.
Oh, recruiting, no, they don't underachieve when it comes to recruiting. No. But like in terms of historically, yes. But like where they are stationed now, Big Ten West, they're not really underachievers. They're a fallen program and they can't get up. Life will never save them. So
it's one of those programs where if you're going to try and sell it, you're going to sell it on its history. You can't sell it on what it is. You can't sell it on what it is now. That's the big thing, the second biggest thing. And I really hate to say this. I don't want to insult the people in Nebraska when I say this. But right now, I'm going a little bit back with what I said with Andrew Wilson, our mailbag video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's the Big Ten West brand of football. It's boring. It's not exciting. It's literally just farmer's boy, throw the hay type football. That's literally all it is.
The yards in a cloud of dust.
You cannot sell me to move to Lincoln, Nebraska, because here's the thing. If you're being recruited by Nebraska, chances are you're also being recruited by like Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now, I'm sorry. I'd rather go to Minneapolis or Madison than Lincoln. I'd rather go to Northwestern. Like Evanston is at least a really, really nice part of Chicago. I'd rather go to Evanston than Lincoln. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like, I look at like what I would get in Lincoln, Nebraska compared to like what I would get in other Big Ten West cities. And I'm just going to look at Lincoln, Nebraska and just be like, you haven't done anything in 5 years, you know, since Frost's been there. You essentially live in no man's land because Lincoln's not even close to like a Chicago or a Minneapolis. What can you sell? What can you sell an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old transfer to go to Lincoln over the likes of a Madison, Minneapolis, or even Michigan? They like a lot. They like a lot of trench guys. You know, you can't sell me on Lincoln over Ann Arbor.
Yeah. As much as I hate Nebraska, I don't know. It's like, I think just over the past few years, they've been more complacent with having a coach that, you know, apparently everyone loves except for his on the field product, because that sucks. But they're just complacent with where they're at right now, which isn't good. They're complacent with being one of the worst teams in a division that is known for not being great because it has teams like Northwestern that are very inconsistent. Teams like Illinois, who are disgusting to watch. Teams like, Iowa went to the Citrus Bowl, but we all hate watching them because their style of football is disgusting. mean, watching Ferentz offense is going to make me puke. But Nebraska should have some sort of an advantage, right? Like
No.
they just have nothing right now. Because we talk about Nebraska with their location. Iowa's not a great location, and
Their
they're not.
closest big city is Kansas City.
That's not really a massive.
Exactly. It's almost 200. It's 150 miles away, which is saying something. They ain't shit there.
But the thing is, we can have that same discussion with Iowa, I feel. But Iowa is a great team.
Iowa makes bowl games. They make bowl games. They make Big Ten title games. Like, I think the thing with Iowa is they at least have somewhat continued success, where we look at Nebraska and it's like, it's easier to go to Iowa City than Lincoln right now, or easy to go to Iowa over Nebraska, because at least you know what you're going to get at Iowa. At least you know that hey, look, we know that they're going to run the ball. We know that the quarterback's going to be disgusting. It's very, if you're an offensive lineman, Iowa's probably a dream school, because that's the best opportunity you're going to get to develop to the next level. But in terms of Nebraska, I feel like with Adrian Martinez, I mean, now he's at Kansas State now, but it's like whenever he was there, it's like, I feel like they're trying to force a dual threat quarterback, but it's like, in terms of Big Ten West style of play, it just does not work.
If you don't have an international airport within your state, that's a small ass state. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because Des Moines is an international airport, which confuses me, but that's a different story for a different day. And Des Moines like 40 minutes outside of Iowa City. So,
yeah.
And Des Moines not even that far away from Chicago either, to be honest.
True.
I mean, I know it don't matter, but it's like at least it's easy to drive there. It's easier to drive to Des Moines than it is to Lincoln.
Yeah. I just think Nebraska needs to embrace what they are right now. Like they're trying to be what they used to be, which is not feasible in this college football era and the division that they're in, especially, and the type of recruits they're going to get. They need to embrace the style of football that the division that they're in plays. Ground and pound, win on defense. Minnesota's done that. Wisconsin's done that. Iowa's done that. Maybe not the extent of Minnesota, but Wisconsin and Iowa are the main two teams. But Nebraska tries to be this team that they're not anymore, and they can't be in this division because it doesn't work. So maybe if they realize that this is their current reality and not 20 years ago when they were looking at national titles, now look and say, okay, instead of national titles, let's look at trying to do something in the Big Ten, because they haven't done anything for the last 5-6 years with Scott Frost, which, by the way, going back to the complacency thing, they're just complacent with him. I don't know why he still has a job there. It makes no sense.
We done?
Yeah, I need to just get my weekly Scott Frost rant in there because he is an awful coach. But Doug, do you have anything else to add?
Final words? No.
Great final words from Doug. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate everyone for watching. Follow us all on Twitter, TPortalCFB. Maybe the dead period of college football, but content will never be dead. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.